Newt Gingrich here, and I'd like to invite you to listen to my podcast, Newt's World. Most people know me as the former Speaker of the House, but I'm also a historian with a wide range of interests. I enjoy talking with fascinating people who are doing extraordinary things. I release 3 episodes of Newt's World every week, and I want to invite you to listen. Hopefully, we'll both learn something new. Listen to Newt's World on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast.
All right, thanks, Scott Shannon. 6 days till the all-important midterms. It'll be Election Day in America in 6 days. And 1 week from today, 7 days out, we will be discussing at this time the results of the 2022 midterm elections, at least the results that we know of. We know in Pennsylvania we're not expecting results, perhaps even for days and days and days. Why? There's no excuse for it, but that is what the system is. I've been saying this since January of 2001. We need to change the way this country votes. Some states do it perfectly. Other states are an absolute unmitigated mess. Anyway, here we are, and I'm watching Biden. Now, the funny thing is Larry Sabato, he's more of a Democrat, even says Biden, the best gift that he can give to any Democrat running right now is to stay home. If you look at the states that he's going to, he will have zero impact. He's down in Florida yesterday, lying his guts out, but then, he's headed to Maryland and he's headed to California, meaningless states. And now the Democrats have put all of their hope and their belief in the anointed one and bringing him back. A very angry Barack Obama. I don't know why he's so angry during these speeches. All now out there lying repeatedly, unending lies. Biden, yesterday he blamed the inflation on Iraq, the Iraq war. I'm like, okay, another cognitive misfire. Then he falsely claimed again, he's done it before, that his son Bo died in Iraq. That's not what he died from. He died sadly from cancer. No parent should have to experience that. I'm sorry that he lost his son. Then he claimed that he once had a personal conversation with the man that invented insulin. That man had died before Biden was even born. You can't make this up. So no wonder nobody wants Biden on the campaign trail. We do have a lot of news. Even fake news CNN is saying the bottom is dropping out for the Democrats with the polls getting worse. But I want to put out a caveat here. As we get started, we'll get into more specificity, more details as the program unfolds. Yes, Lee Zeldin is showing signs that he now has a slight lead over the denier Kathy Hochul, the data denier Kathy Hochul. She's denying the reality of crime and what defund, dismantle, and no bail laws have done to the state of New York. We went through all those numbers yesterday. I won't repeat it now. Yes, so Lee Zeldin has a chance, but it's still an uphill climb. And yes, it is no doubt Tudor Dixon could beat Gretchen Whitmer. She's even up by 1 in one poll that just came out. Yes, it's a dead even race in the state of Washington with Patty Murray and her challenger Tiffany Smiley. I'd love to see all 3 of those races won by Republicans. None of it is a slam dunk. I'm telling you all of this because there are way too many people that I'm hearing and listening to that are a little too Pollyannish and a little too optimistic for my liking, because every one of these races that I'm mentioning to you are all very, very, very close. If you look at the state of Georgia, yeah, I like the fact that Herschel Walker is up 2 points, 3 points in polls against Raphael Warnock, but he's still not at the magic number of 50, because to avoid a runoff, either one of those candidates would have to get 50% of the vote plus 1. And neither one of them is there. Even Brian Kemp was a significant lead over Stacey Abrams. He's only at 51%. He may find himself in the December 6th runoff. So again, you have to accept the fact that polls are one thing, voting is another. And that means that takes effort. That takes responsibility. We can glean a lot of things from polls. We can definitely see the possibility of not only a red wave, but a red tsunami. I mean, if Lee Zeldin wins, Tudor Dixon wins, if Tiffany Smiley wins, if Blake Masters wins and Carrie Lake wins and Adam Laxalt wins, if J.D. Vance wins and Ron Johnson wins and Herschel Walker wins and General Bolduc wins and Dr. Oz wins, yeah, it'll be a tsunami. But if you look at the Senate in particular, I look at Georgia. I look at General Bolduc up by 1 in New Hampshire. I look at Oz up by 1, 2, 3, depending on what poll I'm looking at. But a lot of early voting had taken place prior to the debate. And right now, Democrats, they've gone all in to destroy Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania. They're spending tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars to try and save the radical, the most pro-convicted murderer candidate in the history of electoral politics in America, John Fetterman, the trust fund brat in a hoodie, is sending Obama into Philly over the weekend to try and get the vote out in favor of Fetterman. I think Donald Trump is going to be around campaigning for Republicans in Florida, Pennsylvania, I believe Ohio as well, and some other places. So I don't think Obama's going to have the effect that some people think that he will have. Remember, in Pennsylvania, Obama referred to the people of Pennsylvania as, bitter Americans clinging to their God, their guns, their Bible, their religion. But all these races I'm talking about, Herschel Walker, General Bolduc, Mehmet Oz, Adam Laxalt, Blake Masters, Tiffany Smiley, if we're talking about Tudor Dixon, if we're talking about Lee Zeldin, these are all tight races. There's nobody that can tell you with any degree of certainty how this is going to end. Now, if you do your part and you get out and vote, and you get your friends to vote, you get your family to vote, and you tell people what it is that is at stake in this election, then our odds go up dramatically, and what might be a vision, a thought, a hope can become a reality. Certainly the conditions are ripe for a wave election, but it hasn't happened yet. And until it happens, the only poll that's gonna matter is the one we're talking about 1 week from today, and that's the election results. By every measure, we now see that the media they're now hedging their bets. They've been very, very overly optimistic for the Democrats and their chances. But, only 40% of Americans approve of Joe Biden as president. Only 17% of Americans are satisfied with how things are going in the country. You have more than half of Americans, 70% of Americans now living paycheck to paycheck. Many are going into debt, even credit card debt, to pay for bare necessities. You've got only 21% of Americans approving of the job the Democratic-led Congress is doing. These are all Gallup numbers that have come out. I'm looking at Real Clear Politics. I think they have been the most accurate and more on point than anybody else. They are predicting the wave, but they're also predicting it's close. If you're asking me what I think, what I hope, sometimes it's hard to bifurcate, looking at a race from a distance with objectivity versus what you want to happen. If I had to guess, I'd say Herschel wins. If I had to guess, General Bolduc will pull it out in New Hampshire and Oz will pull it out in Pennsylvania. If I had to guess, Blake Masters and Adam Laxalt will win as well. But I think those are the states that I'm looking at that I'm the most concerned about: New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada. I'm not particularly worried about Wisconsin or Ohio at this point in time, but those are the ones that I think we have to pay the most attention to. Other anecdotal information that you can glean from: white suburban women, key group of midterm voters, have significantly shifted their support from Democrats to Republicans in the closing days of this election. We have a new survey, Wall Street Journal poll, showing that white women living in suburban areas make up now 20% of the electorate. They now favor Republicans for Congress by a whopping 15 percentage points, moving 27 percentage points away from Democrats since the Journal's last poll, which was in August. That is a dramatic switch. Now, usually when you have a wave election year, what happens is when you get to the final 2 weeks, those undecided or those that haven't stated a preference, they begin to break. They're going to break one way or the other usually. If it's a wave election, they're going to break hard in one direction. That appears to be happening now. Anyway, with a week to go in the midterm elections, Democratic operatives, they're now turning on each other. You got them working on House races, Senate races. They're all beginning to assign blame in the event their party loses winnable seats. And the culprit, they say, is blue state governors dragging down the rest of the ballot. Cook Political Report is shifting its ratings in favor of Republicans today. 538, by the way, Nate Silver, the god of the left, in terms of polling. You know, he at one point had Republicans had a 30% chance of winning the Senate. Oh, now finally a week before the election. Oh, yeah, I think Republicans have the advantage now. Don't particularly have a lot of confidence in him. Seems like a CYA to me. There's a direct correlation between the performance of Kathy Hochul and Gavin Newsom and the effect it's having on House candidates is their argument. You have pro-Kemp in Georgia sheriffs furious at Stacey Abrams' comments that we told you about and played for you and played on television. The good old boy remarks, they called it vile and disgusting. I'm not sure if this helps or hurts. I would argue it probably hurts. But Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton are going to headline a rally in New York City with Kathy Hochul. I don't see how that helps them particularly too much. Kathy Hochul to Lee Zeldin, I'm a street fighter. Oh, yeah, she's really tough. The same lady is out there saying, well, there are data deniers. Okay, the murder rates are up. Robberies are up. Carjackings are up. Theft is up. I mean, what planet is Kathy Hochul living on? Because it's not making any sense. Anyway, but it's kind of interesting to watch Democrats. They're all now pointing fingers, worried about the midterms, and Biden. You know, it's bad when the New York Times publishes two separate articles on the Democrats being in a dire situation. They're saying top Democrats are questioning their party's strategy as midterm worries grow. Okay, per the article, Democrats have spent $320 million on abortion ads, only $31 million on inflation ads. Biden verbally fumbles twice during a campaign trip to Florida. That's why they don't want to send him anywhere else. And the president referred to a congresswoman as a senator, and again claimed his son Bo died in Iraq. That's not true, and made the bizarre claim he met the inventor of insulin who'd been dead before he was ever born. That's how insane this is. Look, the Democrats have been wrong. I told you they would run on three things from the very beginning of this year. Hating Trump and January 6th, that has fizzled now. Americans, it's not even in the top 15. They're not thinking about it. I told you they'd run on the Dobbs decision. In many ways, that's backfired. Because Democrats, when asked, well, what restrictions would you support? They almost, in unison, don't support any restrictions on abortion. Okay, that is as out of touch with the mainstream of America as any position on abortion I've ever heard. In other words, Democrats are okay with the fact that women should have the right to an abortion an hour before they're about to give birth to that child that could live outside the womb, and that would be called infanticide. And I don't know a single pro-choice person that I've ever talked to that takes on that extreme radical position. But anyways, and then now we're stuck with Republicans are going to steal your Social Security. They have secret plans. They have to say secret because no Republican is running on it. They're going to end Social Security and steal it. They're going to steal your Medicare, and they're going to take benefits away from veterans. Actually, the benefits that veterans now have and the VA that was fixed was done under Donald Trump. But don't let facts get in the way of a good narrative. That is pure desperation on their part. And, it's the final moments of a campaign, everything you'd expect. When cyber criminals comb the dark web for stolen items, some of the things that they value the most are what they call PII, which is personal identifiable information. And that would include your full name, your social security number, your driver's license, bank account numbers, passport numbers, phone numbers, email addresses. Look, all of us are putting our personal information at risk every day on the internet. LifeLock.com by Norton. They see the threats we would all miss on our own. And if, in fact, any information of yours is compromised, they will give you an alert. If your identity is stolen, you will get a dedicated U.S.-based restoration specialist to fix it for you. By the way, LifeLock by Norton, a low annual rate. You'll save an additional 25% off your first year using the promo code Hannity when you call 1-800-LifeLock or just go to LifeLock.com. Save an additional 25% off when you go to LifeLock.com or call 1-800-LifeLock, promo code Hannity, and you'll protect your good name and reputation. It'll protect your finances so you're not robbed blind, and your credit score.
Newt Gingrich here, and I'd like to invite you to listen to my podcast, Newt's World. Most people know me as the former Speaker of the House, but I'm also a historian with a wide range of interests. I enjoy talking with fascinating people across a variety of topics. On Newt's World, we've had some extraordinary guests join us, like former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger.
Ending the war in Vietnam was a necessity in order to help heal the divisions in the country.
John Clifton, the CEO of Gallup.
The world has been winning the war against hunger for 4 decades. In 2014, it switched. We have a serious hunger crisis.
And House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy.
What I've really found the Republican Party to be, it's the party of the people, the working people of America.
I release 3 episodes of Newt's World podcast every week, and I hope you'll find my conversations engaging and informative, and hopefully we'll both learn something new. Listen to Newt's World on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast. Newt Gingrich here, and I'd like to invite you to listen to my podcast, Newt's World. Most people know me as the former Speaker of the House, but I'm also a historian with a wide range of interests. I enjoy talking with fascinating people across a variety of topics. On Newt's World, we've had some extraordinary guests join us, like former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger.
Ending the war in Vietnam was a necessity in order to help heal the divisions in the country.
John Clifton, the CEO of Gallup.
The world has been winning the war against hunger for 4 decades. In 2014, it switched. We have a serious hunger crisis.
And House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy.
What I've really found the Republican Party to be, it's the party of the people, the working people of America.
I release 3 episodes of Newt's World podcast every week, and I hope you'll find my conversations engaging and informative, and hopefully we'll both learn something new. Listen to Newt's World on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast.
From coast to coast, from border to border, from sea to shining sea. This is the Sean Hannity Show.
Yes, it's meaningful that top Democrats now are questioning their party strategy as the midterm worries are growing, and leading lawmakers and strategists openly doubting the party's kitchen sink approach, saying Democrats have failed to unite around one central message. The only message, look at the money that they spent. $320 million on ads focused on abortion rights, $31 million on spots about inflation, because they caused the high inflation, the 41-year high of inflation. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court banned the counting of undated or misstated absentee ballots in the upcoming midterm election. Okay, finally, maybe we're going to follow the law in Pennsylvania and the Constitution in Pennsylvania. Constitution has very strict restrictions as it relates to mail-in voting. But that's okay. The Supreme Court ignored that part, which I think was a mistake constitutionally. Anyway, so we're seeing a pattern reemerging. Nate Cohn of the New York Times is saying that in the aftermath of the 2020 election, most pollsters concluded the polls probably underestimated Donald Trump because of something called a non-response bias. In short, Mr. Trump's supporters were less likely to respond to surveys than Joe Biden supporters, even among people who had the same demographic characteristics. While non-response bias is challenging to prove, there was one possible marker of it in the New York Times Siena College data in 2020. I think most people don't trust a lot of these pollsters, and nor should you. You know, if I had to guess, Republicans are in a great position, but you still have to get out there and vote. You still, these elections are great on paper, polls are great on paper, but it's the actual poll on election day that matters. And all of these races now that are in place, should give you hope and optimism that America can get back or begin the process, at least, of getting it back on track. And that would start by Republicans taking the House, taking the Senate, winning some of these gubernatorial races that nobody thought were possible. That'd be great. We'll continue. 25 to the top of the hour, 6 days until the all-important midterms. Best election coverage available on your radio dial. 1 week from today, we will be analyzing Well, at least the results that are in on time, the races and what has taken place, all of this, and I can't emphasize this enough, is in your hands. You know, this is a radio show. I do a television show, thanks to all of you, and I mean that sincerely. I can only give out information. I can only tell you about where we are and what the possibilities are. The possibilities of a massive wave election are absolutely, positively there. The conditions in terms of the failure of the Democrats, it is a spectacular fail. I wrote Live Free or Die, America and the World on the Brink. This is the on the brink part. If I got anything wrong in it, I didn't expect it would happen. I didn't think it would be this bad this fast. And it's bad. From inflation to gas prices, now a diesel fuel shortage that we have, the potential of blackouts for all of New England, meaning they won't be able to heat their homes because you don't have enough natural gas to fire up the grid in New England. Are you kidding me? We'll talk to Governor Sununu about this tomorrow. He's going to be on with General Bolduc. I mean, that is a real possibility for New England. Predicted price hikes to heat your home this winter, 30+%. And that's gas and oil, regardless of how you heat your home. I mean, it's just bad. None of it is any good. By the way, if you're in Ohio, you may be very happy to hear that Liz Cheney is back Tim Ryan, the Democrat, in the Ohio Senate race, as if that's going to matter. Anyway, Tim Ryan has been trying hard to convince the people of Ohio that he's something that he is not, more conservative than his party. Well, they had a debate, and Tim Ryan and JD sounded off on crime and abortion and immigration at a Fox News town hall. It was pretty interesting to watch. I think the more interesting part of that is that Tim Ryan got called out for pretty much lying during the middle of this debate. There was an audience member that asked, hey, can you look me in the face and tell me that the government expenditures on green energy subsidies through the Inflation Reduction Act are in any way lessening my burden at the gas station and the grocery store? Ryan replied, I could not say that. Then he tried to argue the Inflation Reduction Act would come at some point, some later point, but I don't think anyone believed him. Vance didn't let him get away with it, saying inflation was directly attributable, and it is, to Biden's spending. Ryan then tried to claim that he had never called for the defunding of ICE, not one time. I did not have sex with that woman, not a single time. I can go back to the work and the business of the American people. Daily Wire, well, they fact-checked it. Ryan agreed to support a path to citizenship for 11 million illegal immigrants. So he lied during the town hall last night, also pledging to slash the detention budget for ICE and the use of ICE detainers in an ACLU questionnaire that was sent to him. And the worst moment of the night for Ryan was when he claimed falsely that a police officer had been killed on January 6th, and he immediately was called out as a liar by the town hall audience, and then he smiled, believing that he was correct and that they were wrong. He did not have a particularly good town hall. We all watched the video. There was no video of any police officer being killed because it didn't happen. Instead of calling him out, the audience, the audience got involved. They called him out. Ryan said he was happy to have the conversation, thinking that somehow schooling the audience would be good for him. In the case, but anyway, it just goes on from there. Look, this is all they have. And, if anything, Ryan is just a little bit smarter than every other radical Democrat is. He's just trying to hide who he is. But at this point in time, everything is right. They also caught Fetterman. A tape has emerged of him. One was of him calling people in Pennsylvania racist and Republicans racist. In 2020, because Fetterman's been out there saying it's not true. I've never supported decriminalizing hard drugs and fentanyl and legalizing it. Well, in 2020, he was doing an interview and he said, I applaud Oregon for their step that they took the last election, decriminalizing small amounts of drugs. And that Oregon law that he was referring to was called Measure 110, and it decriminalized simple possession of all drugs, including opioids, heroin, and, yes, fentanyl. In the first year since that took effect, drug overdose deaths, they went up a whopping 40%. That's what John Fetterman would like to bring to the great state of Pennsylvania. A Buffalo grandmother. Look at this. This is such a sad story. It's on the front cover of the New York Post today. You know, remember, we went over the numbers yesterday. Every major category for crime, especially violent crime, is up dramatic numbers. And last year was already a record year in New York. Now, the mother of a 30-year-old Buffalo woman killed by her estranged husband tells the Post that Governor Hochul was just as responsible for the brutal slaying of the man that pulled the trigger. Now, this is Kathy Hochul has been saying you have data manipulators out there. Anyway, the mother of Kiera Benefield spoke about her daughter's execution-style death on October the 5th when Adam Benefield crashed into her car, pulled out a shotgun, and killed her. Now, the problem is Adam Benefield had been released from jail less than 24 hours before the killing for savagely beating Kiera in an on-camera attack. But he was released because of these idiotic no bail laws that Kathy Hochul in New York supports. Anyway, Kiera had begged the police for help from her abusive husband, had a prior conviction for kidnapping another woman at gunpoint in the weeks before she was murdered. That's a horrendous 8-minute video. Kiera had posted it to Facebook showing Adam punching, kicking, and slapping her relentlessly. Anyway, the guy's arrested, and a week after the late September assault, charged with only a string of misdemeanor charges, including third-degree assault, fourth-degree criminal mischief, second-degree menacing, second-degree unlawful imprisonment. The low-level charges prevented the judge from setting bail. The guy was released and gets out and goes to murder this poor woman. And as far as her mother, the mother of the woman slain is concerned, it's the governor of New York's support for this idiotic no-cash bail law that directly led to her daughter's barbaric death. Quote, she should be charged for the crime. She's also responsible for the crime. By the way, timing couldn't be any worse because she's been out there defending this idiocy almost every day. Doesn't mean much to me that 538 is now, they were telling us the Democrats have a 70% chance of winning the Senate. All of a sudden they've decided that, it looks like the GOP has a really good chance of taking over the Senate. Okay. A little too late from 538. And it seems like that they're just trying to save their, reputation, but they've been wrong the entire election cycle. And the only reason they're changing is now it's overwhelming evidence. The evidence has been there the entire time. How can pollsters be so out of touch with people when supposedly they talk to people? The White House, they're now crediting Joe Biden for the fact that Social Security payments will increase a whopping 8.7% this year, even though the move to boost the benefits was caused by Joe Biden's 41-year high of inflation. So seniors are getting the biggest increase in their Social Security checks in 10 years. What they're not factoring in is the $7,200 Biden inflation tax that every American household is facing. And I doubt the 8.7% increase in Social Security payments is going to make up for the $7,200 on average that people are paying for the exact same things they were buying under Donald Trump. We have other bad information that for you economically. Oil prices could climb back to $100 this year as trade above $120 a barrel in 2023 as looming unpredictable this winter arrives and energy stockpiles are now shrinking, according to top analysts that is out there saying, quote, we're expecting oil prices to go towards $100 in the year's end, trading into $110 a barrel, $120 a barrel for most of next year. Oil inventories stay extremely low. Why? Because Joe Biden thinks it's only okay to beg countries that hate us for the lifeblood of our economy. Diesel prices for November delivery are up a whopping 40%. I wonder if Joe Biden will address this problem. Anyway, diesel stockpiles are now at the lowest level we've ever had going back to 1993. In the Northeast, where more people depend on diesel to heat their homes in the winter, supplies are 1/3 of what the typical levels are during this time of year, according to Biden's own Department of Energy. Diesel prices for November delivery have surged a whopping 38%, which will translate into more expensive home heating oil prices, particularly in the Northeast. I almost wish that the election were in February, because by that point, Americans are going to feel the 30 to 40 to 50%, whatever it ultimately plays out at. They're predicting at least 30% increase in heating bills. There's a New York Times piece. As housing costs soar, co-living makes a comeback. Living arrangements known as dorms for adults are on the upswing after declining during the pandemic, and developers are adapting to the renewed interest. In other words, you can't afford your own apartment, so you're going to live with a bunch of strangers. That's great for privacy. U.S. manufacturing has plummeted to its lowest level since 2020. And Biden announced a $13 billion package to bring the cost of energy down for low and moderate income families, including helping with heating costs and unpaid utility bills this winter. Why wouldn't you deal with the real cause of the problem, which is the artificial reduction in supply that is caused by the Biden energy policies, which is no domestic production? It's unbelievable. By the way, the Fed today, again, as predicted, now we have mortgage rates over 7% leading into today's rise, predictable rise. You know, this is what, 1, 2, 3, is it 4 in a row or 5 in a row? 4 in a row, 75 basis points increase in inflation, which we predicted would happen. Here it is. That means that a 30-year fixed rate mortgage now at over 7%, it will now be headed to 8%. And if they have a couple of more of these, we'll be looking at a 30-year fixed rate mortgage with 10% interest rates. By the way, that's killing the housing industry. New home construction coming to a halt, and then it goes on from there. Sale of pre-existing homes plummets, and home values decline as well. It's weird that the White House did delete the tweet flagged by Twitter crediting Biden for Social Security payment increases. Why would you brag about that, considering the only reason that's happening is because of the inflation that you caused? Biden's communication director, Kate Bedingfield, says Biden will travel to New Mexico, California, Illinois, and Maryland in the final 6 days. States that he will have no impact on. Anyway, if you want to talk about his big appearance down in Florida yesterday, Debbie Wasserman Schultz struggled to amp up a crowd where Biden was, imploring the attendees to wake up. He had to tell them to wake up because Joe was putting everybody to sleep. I have no idea what Biden's speech is going to be about tonight, an unscheduled speech at Union Station near the Capitol. Anyway, that's where there was an attempt to subvert our democracy. So anyway, he's going to deliver remarks on preserving and protecting our democracy. Anyway, at a DNC committee event in Washington, D.C., which I'm sure the networks are going to say, see, it's all about January 6th. Americans have made up their mind about January 6th. Most Americans deplore rioting. They deplore law breaking. They believe in protecting elected officials. They believe in protecting our institutions. This is not conservative versus liberal. But how convenient it is that all these years I've been scrolling the names of innocent people in cities like Chicago that are shot and killed every weekend, massive numbers, dozens and dozens every weekend, and you don't hear a peep out of any liberal Democrat. You don't know their names. You don't hear their names. You may hear a report on a show like this. And then something happens like January 6th. The same people that were either silent or lied about the 574 riots in the summer of 2020 or said that they were mostly peaceful, they only care about the one riot on January 6th. We condemn all riots. That's the difference. We condemn what happened to Paul Pelosi. For the life of me, I don't understand why the Speaker of the House, third in line for the presidency, doesn't have more security. We need to fix that for any speaker, regardless of whether they're a Democrat or a Republican. I wish him a speedy recovery. But, why is it these Democrats don't show the same urgency about all of the people in every small town and big city that are getting crushed because of no bail laws and defund and dismantle policies. How come they ignored the 574 riots in the summer of 2020? We're consistent. They're not. Really that simple. All right, 800-941-SEAN, our number. We got a lot of ground to cover. We'll check in with Bill O'Reilly, get his take on the election in 6 days. Later on in the program, we'll check in with our pollsters. We'll get their take of whether or not this is a wave election year or not. That ultimately will be decided by all of you. But one thing you can do in these inflationary and recessionary times to save money is leave and abandon the big carriers like AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile and make the switch to my cell phone company, and that's Pure Talk. You'll get the exact same cell towers as the big carriers, the same 5G network. You'll have the same number of coverage bars appearing on your phone. You'll keep your phone. You'll keep your phone number. They have more options and plans that are cheaper and available, like, unlimited talk and text and 6 gigs of data for just $30 a month. See if the big carriers offer you that. The answer is they do not. Anyway, the average family is saving close to $1,000 a year. Many families are saving even much more. It takes only minutes to make the switch. All you have to do to get the exact same service and save $1,000 a year is dial pound 250. Say the keyword save now. It's that simple. Pound 250, keyword save now from our friends at Pure Talk.
Sean Hannity.
All right, all things simple man, self-proclaimed simple man, Bill O'Reilly. We'll get his take on the election in 6 short days. We'll check in with our pollsters, and even the state of Connecticut may have 2 races in play we'll tell you about straight ahead.
Newt Gingrich here, and I'd like to invite you to listen to my podcast, Newt's World. Most people know me as the former Speaker of the House, but I'm also a historian with a wide range of interest. I enjoy talking with fascinating people who are doing extraordinary things. I release 3 episodes of Newt's World every week, and I want to invite you to listen. Hopefully, we'll both learn something new. Listen to Newt's World on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast.